Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Monday Inspo with Pastor Nina Obikudu. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a wonderful start to your working, schooling, business week, as the case may be for you, except for those, of course, who are in Nigeria and are observing the public holiday, where our Muslim faithfuls are celebrating the birth of Muhammad, I guess. Good morning. So I'm sure some people are still having a slow start. Some people are still on their bed. Some people are still sleeping. Some people are just enjoying the fact that they do not have to wake up early and run to work or get the children ready for school and all of that. But all the same, we're grateful for a new day. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and the joy of the Lord will continually be our strength. Now, today on Monday Inspo, we will be looking at slaves or servants, servants or slaves. And I think for some people, it really doesn't matter. Servant, slave seems to be the same thing for them. Okay, so that's exactly why I've chosen to talk about it today, because we have a kind of mindset, we have a kind of mentality about servant. So you see someone get really upset when he's called a servant. You see somebody really frown when he's called a servant. Many people do not like to be addressed that way. And, you know, it's just because of our mentality and what we really think a servant, or who we really think a servant is. Now, Jesus said to his people, his disciples, at a point when they were clamoring for who should be at his right hand and at his left, and who should, you know, take the first position in his heart or in his kingdom or authority or office, as it were. He said to them, it's very simple. Anyone that wants to be the greatest must be a servant. Must be a servant. So if Jesus says that to us, I wonder why we are so upset to be servants. Now, the reason why so many people perform poorly for their organizations, you know, is because of this wrong mentality that they are servants. When people hear that they are being introduced as a servant, it pains them, it annoys them. So because of that, they make a resolution not to give their best, because they are upset that they were addressed as servants. Now, who is a servant? A servant is simply someone who is hired to do a job. A servant is someone who is hired to serve, to render service. So you see companies after 5 years, after 10 years, 15 years, what they celebrate is long service award. It means that that person has been serving the company for 5 years. That person has been serving the company for 10 years or for 15 years or onwards. That person is simply a servant. That person was hired to serve in a given capacity and is being paid for his service. So when people begin to get angry that they are servants, it just shows that they have little or no understanding of what the word means. A servant is one who is hired to serve and is paid for that service. So there's no need to be upset if you're a servant. Look, an attendant is a servant. Someone hired to do PRO is a servant. Someone who is a customer care representative is a servant of his or her organization. And that person gets paid to do that service to the company, to the organization, or to the customers in view. So when you get upset that you are called a servant and you don't give your best because of that, you are missing out. You have a wrong mindset that needs to be changed. Now, the reason why I've said servants versus slaves, or servants or slaves, is because there is another category called slave. Now, for every organization, for every department, for every household that employs people to work, there are always two sets of people. There are the servants and then there are the slaves. Now we have established that servants are people who are hired to do a service to an organization or to a certain group of people and are paid for that service. Now slaves are people who are not hired. They are forcefully asked, forcefully coerced into doing service or doing a job for a group of people, an organization, an establishment without pay. So the difference here is that servants are willfully employed and paid for their services, while slaves are coerced, are forced into doing that service, and they get no pay for it. So my question is, who are you, a servant or a slave? Because you must be one. It's either you're being hired to do service and you do it joyfully and you get paid for it, or you are being forced to do service without getting any pay. Now, this is where you should be angry. If you are a slave, if you are being forced, if it's not your will to walk there, if it's not your will to do what you're being asked to do, then you are a slave, not a servant. That is when you should be angry. That is when you should seek for change. That is when you should revolt. That is when you should get upset and say, this, I won't take this. This, I won't have it. This is not who I am. This doesn't define me. I am better than this. I am more than this. And then you clamor for change and you possibly walk out of that situation. Now, it's the same even for relationships. There's so many people that are in relationships that are not paying them. They are just forced to be there. They are like bond servants. They have no say. They cannot make a move. Everything is by force. You need to change. You need to seek for help. You need to leave that relationship ASAP. Because you are a slave. But if you are not a slave, it means that you must be getting some form of pay for the service that you are rendering, whether in the relationship or as a job or occupation that you do. So there is a difference between being a servant and being a slave. So next time you get upset when you are referred to as a servant in an organization, watch it. Because the moment you are upset, your output becomes very, very different. The moment you see yourself as a bond person, you will not want to give your best. But as long as you're getting paid for it, it doesn't matter. As long as you're getting paid for the service that you are rendering, it doesn't matter if you are termed the servant. That is really who you are. Because you are hired to give service. So forget about the name. Concentrate on the service that you were hired to give. The people who come out as employee of the month and are given awards, the people who get awards over a period of time, maybe yearly or monthly as it is in various organizations, are people who pour out their heart in service. Are people who are diligent in service, giving their all, giving their best. They are not focusing on the names that they are being called. Am I saying that people should begin to call you all manner of names just because you work for them? No. But the name servant in itself just shows that you are someone hired to serve. And that is no bad thing in itself. But if you are a slave, not just by name, but by reason of function, someone who is forced to give service without any pay, then you need to seek for change. Then you need to walk out of that office. You need to walk out of that business organization, out of that relationship, out of whatever it is. Because there you have no peace. There you have no value. It means that you are being devalued. You are taken for granted. They just want to use you. But remember, we began with the words of Jesus. If anyone is going to be the greatest, he then must be a servant. Be willing to serve. Many people who are at the top today have made it to the top because of service. Service is a steady ladder that takes you to the top. So on Monday Inspo this morning, we've established the fact that being a servant is not a wrong thing. A servant is simply someone who was hired to do a job and gets paid for it. Being a slave is being someone who is forced to do a job against his own will and probably doesn't get paid for it. So you need to revolt if you are a slave. Not just by reason of being called a slave, but you look at this definition and you see that you are actually functioning as a slave. You need help. You need to walk out of that relationship, that organization, that job, whatever circle it is that has made you a slave. And if you are a servant, please serve with all sincerity, because your reward will only come in the place of service. And I hope this has helped someone. I hope this has, made someone have a shift in mindset this morning. And I hope that this will encourage you to give your best to the organization that you serve. Now that's it on Monday Inspo. And until I come your way again, stay safe, stay blessed, stay knowing that God loves you so very much. And so do I. Have a blessed week ahead.